Welcome back to Tradeswork. I'm your host, John Ekstrom. We are here inside the Mile High Sports Studios with our fancy new logo behind us inside number 38 in beautiful Rhino neighborhood of Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, John Ekstrom, joined to my right by Randy Drennen, president of Rocky Mountain Mechanical Contractors Association, and to my left, Rick Allen, international representative for the United Association. Welcome to the show, Rick. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. I think what we want to do here, and it bears mention, we do have these in front of us, so please visit milehighsports.com and go to number 38 here in the beautiful neighborhood. Now, Rick, I think I'd like to start with two truths and a lie. I'd like you to spot the lie. Okay?
All right.
Number one, plumbers and pipe fitters regularly make six-figure salaries as journeymen. Number two, UA plumbers and pipe fitters spend more time in a classroom than college graduates. And three, plumbers' pants are specifically engineered to expose the top of the butt crack as a safety feature.
All three are true.
Oh, terrific. Okay, so there is no lie.
Yeah, they're all true.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
I think a lot of people would find that surprising. More time in a classroom than college graduates.
Yeah,
I mean, about that.
Well, we have 5-year apprenticeship program, 6 hours a week, generally 3 hours a night at night school or a full day, depending on where you're going to school. But then also on the job training, right? So you're getting training on the job, plus you're getting training in the classroom and the labs and all that. Yep.
But you graduate with no debt, right?
You graduate with no debt and a college degree.
Jeez. Okay. So tell me a little bit. We mentioned UA, and what is an international rep? What is it that you do, and how did you arrive at this position?
It sounds glorious, doesn't it? I'm an international representative. What that means is I'm a representative for my international union, and by international, that's United States and Canada. Okay. And then we have affiliation agreement with Ireland and one with Australia as well. But basically international rep, my job is each international rep has territory. My territory is Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, and Nevada.
Okay. So we're talking about very cosmopolitan locations like Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Yes.
And Elko, Nevada.
Yeah. Elko, Nevada. Yeah.
I have been there many times.
Spot. Yeah. Actually, I love the whole area, really. But, yeah. Some of it's a little rural.
Yeah. Very cosmopolitan. Having driven from Salt Lake to Reno. Yeah, that is a long drive across northern Nevada.
That is a drive.
Tell me, how do things change from state to state? So you have this territory. Obviously, it's grouped together for a reason. But what varies, say, between, you also mentioned South Dakota as part of your territory as well.
Yep. West River. Yep.
So how do things differ from Nevada to Utah to Colorado to Wyoming? How are they similar and how do they differ?
Well, for us, it's very similar in each area. The geography is a little different, obviously. If you're a member out of Local 192 in Cheyenne, there's a good chance you're not working in Cheyenne. You're working in Rapid City, or you're working in Rock Springs, or you might be working in Cheyenne. Grand Junction, Colorado, most of our guys in Grand Junction work in the ski areas. They work up building resorts, and we do have a crew of guys that do some of the industrial work in Craig and Hayden, Colorado as well. So really, we cover the whole area, and locals are very similar. It's just the geography is a lot different, and so that presents different dynamics for us.
Randy, how do you and Rick overlap? Because I know that Rocky Mountain Mechanical Contractors Association, we cover a very similar territory. I think it's slightly different, but how do you and Rick overlap, and how do you intersect?
Well, that's evolving for me, right? Obviously, I'm still relatively new in this position, and Rick's he's the old guard. I've looked to Rick, and Rick's actually helped me, kind of sort through a number of issues with some contractors that have entered into national agreements, and it's really been kind of an education, but Rick's been just a tremendous resource for me. So I think in the ways that we intersect is, obviously Rick is kind of a level above in terms of I don't know if it's an organizational chart or a tree or however you want to kind of envision that, but Rick kind of has oversight for all the business managers that I relate to on a regular basis. And so I have 5 of those, and all 5 of those are within Rick's territory. And so it's really useful for me to be able to reach out to Rick when I'm dealing with something that's kind of a macro issue that affects my entire membership across that entire territory. Right. And there's not a ton of those, but they do come up from time to time where we're talking about things like maybe substance abuse policy. And that's something that we agree upon as a territory and as an association. And so Rick's input in something like that is super valuable. Rick also brings that perspective of the national organization. So rather than being kind of involved at the what I would call the micro level, or kind of boots on the ground at the local level. Rick's really interfacing with, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but Rick's interfacing with the UA at a national level. So he's really bringing those programs and those priorities that they've established at a national level to those locals, so that they can implement those and be the boots on the ground at that level. And so, obviously we're trying to be supportive of those efforts and those programs. And so it creates a lot of opportunity for us, I think, to kind of share ideas and work together and collaborate on a number of things.
Terrific. Rick, comment on that?
He did a great job. No, yeah, that's basically
And that's our show for today.
Yeah. Appreciate the opportunity. See you guys. No, it's good. No, he covered that very well. But yeah, that's basically, I work for the international, but I have oversight over the locals, and really what that means is I work with them. And every now and then we get out of the box, or we come up with some innovative new things to work together. But working, to me, the most important thing we have that we do is our labor management relations, because we're both on the same team and we both have to pull in the same direction. And so it's important to have the good relationships with Randy and with our contractors and our association to make sure we're all pulling in the same way. And we've accomplished a lot over my 25 years of doing this. This has been, we're nowhere near where we were 25 years ago. We're in a much better position.
That's great to hear. Your first impressions of working with Randy. So Randy mentioned he's sort of new on the job. You're the old guard.
Yeah.
How has it been working with Randy?
It's been great working with Randy. Like I said, he's pretty new, but answers the phone when you call him. We have some great conversations, and we're moving the needle a little bit. Everybody knows Mike Shanahan, right? Great coach for the Denver Broncos. Fantastic. Should be in the Hall of Fame, all that stuff. But towards the end there with the Broncos, things got just a touch stale, right?
Right.
I mean, they'd line up on offense and you'd know what they were running just by their formation if you watched them as much as I did, right? So every now and then it does good to shake things up a little bit. The former exec had a different opportunity, so I brought Randy in, and it's good to have fresh eyes in there. He's got fresh ideas, and it kind of helps move that needle a little further along. So.
I think you mentioned Mike Shanahan. To use an even more recent example, especially since we're here in the Mile High Sports Studio, you could watch the Nuggets kind of tune out Michael Malone there at the end.
Yep.
Where you could see him, doing his whole spiel during timeouts, and you're watching players kind of looking around going, I don't know. Right. And regardless of how effective you are, and I think you could say both Mike Shanahan and Michael Malone, extremely effective and very, very good, well-respected. Everything that they did, I think warrants a lot of praise, but after a certain amount of time, it's time for everyone to sort of get a fresh start. So I think that's what you're describing.
Yes, that is. Yep.
Fantastic. Okay. One of the reasons that we're here is because we want to talk about myths versus facts. And so I'd like to ask you both this open-ended question. What is the top myth that either of you hear when asked about organized labor, about unions?
Well, I think one of them is we're lazy, right? Union guys don't work for a living. They just, go draw a check. And if you don't like it, well, then the union quote unquote boss, which is a term I hate, is going to come adjust things. That's not the case at all. Look, if you're willing to go to school 5 nights or 2 nights a week for 5 years, if you're willing to put all this into your education, you're willing to go to work every day and work hard on a construction job site. That's tough work.
It is.
There is no feather bedding. There is no laying down. If you're not doing your job, you're not employed.
Wow.
Our world, especially in construction, is driven a lot on bids, right? And who's the low bidder? Well, we cost more than the non-union. That's not a myth. We also spend a lot of money on training. So our guys are up to speed on how to do things.
So very high quality product.
High quality product. And if you're trained to do things, you can get it done a lot quicker than, if you just have the knowledge of yourself putting stuff in. We've got, we spend nationally, $300 million a year on training.
Wow.
Right. And so I'm very proud of our education. I think it is what separates us from everybody else.
I think one of the things, Randy, you and I have talked about quite a bit is this is America. You get what you pay for. If you go with the lowest bidder every time, you can get someone who will do it for cheap, but they'll be a little bit worse. Whereas if you're willing to spend the money, if you're willing to spend on the projects that are important to you, you are going to get the highest quality available.
There's the old adage in anything that's really construction related, and maybe it's beyond construction too, right? You get 3 options: good, cheap, and fast.
Yeah.
Right. Pick two.
Pick
Is
two.
usually the
Right.
way that works. Right. And that's probably accurate for us. Right. I mean, I'll be honest. I stand on the fact that we're good and we're fast.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Rick just highlighted. And that doesn't make us the cheapest, but there's a reason for that. And I don't make apologies for that, frankly. I mean, you get what you pay for. And to your point, it is America. You know, there's a lot of griping about tariffs right now, but frankly, if that just made people buy more American products, I don't know that that's such a terrible thing. You know, I mean, that's partly how we got here. So I would back what Rick said 100%, and that we are not the cheapest, but I truly believe we are the best product available, and that our guys work faster because they have that level of training and they continue to train. It's not you're done after 5 years and good luck to you. I mean, the continuation of that training above and beyond when they turn out as journeymen just continues well into their careers. And then we offer additional training through our association for management folks and for other people who are just trying to gain professional skills that are not being necessarily taught or covered at the JATC level. We try to supplement with that stuff as well, so that you get this kind of hybrid of training that still becomes available to you. So I stand on that all day long, that we are good and we are fast, and I don't apologize for not being cheap.
I think that's a good philosophy to have. And I'm curious, I want to unpack this a little bit more, because the perception that unions are lazy, right? I think back to a classic Simpsons episode where Homer comes upon some Teamsters just lounging about, and he goes, "Oh, Teamsters, so lazy and surly. How I'd love to be a Teamster." What do you think has contributed to this belief that unions foster laziness? Is this a media thing? Are there examples of bad actors in the past that have contributed to this? I'm interested in your answer.
I think it's probably a little bit of everything. You know, I'm going to tell you, like I said, I've been a labor leader I'm in my 26th year now, right? So I've seen quite a bit. I've seen some folks get run off for not working, you know, for not showing up on Mondays or whatever. There's no protection for that, right? I mean, you can't justify it. It's just because you're union doesn't mean you're getting a free pass.
Doesn't mean
right?
you're unaccountable.
Yeah, we have a collective bargaining agreement with our employers. They hire a guy for 40 hours a week. They expect him to be there. Things come up. People get sick, things like that. You're going to miss a little bit of time. But if you are consistently gone every Monday, you're going to get terminated, right? And there is no grievance to have there, right? And so we're obligated to investigate, but we represent the membership, not the member, right? So is it in the best interest of everybody in the local union to take on a frivolous grievance? It is
probably not, no.
You know, so on that aspect of it, our guys are not lazy, and I'll stack them up against anybody. I'll tell you that.
And they'll turf the ones who are lazy, I'm assuming.
Right. Yeah. You know, the ones that don't want to work for a living, they don't stick around.
Yeah, they don't last.
Right.
You know,
anything.
I think about quite a bit. My background is in oil and gas, and people don't differentiate between oil and gas companies necessarily. So you are only ever as good as your worst operator. And so you need your worst operator to be at a very high minimum level. So when we're talking about organized labor, you want the weakest link in the chain to be operating at a very high level. Is that fair, Randy?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, most of our contractors, you know, are brought in on really, really specialized projects, I would say, really important projects where the quality of the work matters a great deal. I mean, we've talked about this on this show in the past. You know, there's a reason that union contractors do most, if not all, of the hospitals in this region, right?
Right.
I mean, because that work is critically important. It has to be done absolutely perfectly. It has to be done to the highest standard with stainless steel, you know, specialty materials and things like that. Med gas, you know, certifications going through some of those, the piping and everything. So, I mean, you're talking about really, really complicated stuff that has to be done perfectly. And our guys are the guys doing it. That's not by happenstance. That's intentional. So
this is not frivolous work.
No,
that's happening.
No.
Especially when you talk about hospitals. You go to a hospital, you want that to work perfectly every single time. And so what you're articulating to me is there's a reason you want union folks doing that, because here's the other thing. You mentioned constant training, right? So we've spent a lot of time on this show talking about extensively how things have evolved and moved very, very quickly. So staying up on that and having a union backbone to be able to provide that training and provide the resources that you need, I think is vitally important.
I agree. You look at us, you know, and you come through your 5-year apprenticeship, and like Randy expressed earlier, that doesn't mean you're done with training. You're turning out, right? But we have continuing education that goes on, and a lot of good management training through the Specialty Contractors Institute, which the MCA has in Colorado. And I think it's a great thing that you can be an 18-year-old fresh out of high school, go get an apprenticeship, turn out, maybe you spend a year or two working on tools, decide, you know what, I want to do some CAD. You can come to our school, you can get some CAD drafting classes, you can get that under your belt. Maybe you want project management. You go to SCI, the Contractor Association, you get the training there. You can go as far as you want in this trade with internally, right? Which is a big deal because most businesses, you go to college, you graduate, you go to work. Most folks aren't working in what they went to college for, right? And so you're starting at the bottom and working your way up. And with us, you're coming through. It's pretty seamless. It's actually, I think it's probably one of the best ways to go for a person. I've got nephews in right now and trying to get another one in. This has been a great trade for me. And I think it'd be a great trade for a lot of people for a lot of years. The work we have right now and what's coming it just looks so positive for the next over a decade. And I can't tell you in my career when I ever have been able to say, yeah, work looks good for a decade. Never,
No, I'd say that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to throw some statements at you all. These are some commonly held myths about our industry. Skilled trades are a backup option for people who can't go to college.
Yeah, that's not accurate, right? I mean, it is an option for people that can't go to college, but it's an option for everybody. Right. You take a look at a college graduate, right? Somebody with a generic degree coming out of a 4-year college, they're going to hit an entry level and make about half the money as a journeyman plumber or pipe fitter or HVAC technician, right?
Yeah.
They are never going to catch that plumber, pipe fitter, HVAC unless you're a neurosurgeon or a lawyer or something that's, highly specialized and generates a lot of income. You're going to do just fine in this trade.
And who among us cannot just immediately pivot to neurosurgeon? Correct. I mean, who among us, obviously. Trade jobs are dirty, dangerous, and low paying.
So that's a bit of a trick question, I'll just say. There are elements of trade jobs that can be dirty. Are they all dirty? No, there are elements of trade work that also happen in clean rooms or happen in highly sterilized environments that have to be done in extremely clean environments. We were just referencing some of the hospital work and some of the med gas stuff that happens on stainless piping and things like that. Ultra clean applications for those materials. Can it be dangerous? Sure. There are times when trades are forced to work in confined spaces. There's times when they're around flammable materials. Is it more or less dangerous than, I don't know, any other type of career? I would argue probably not. And that's where, again, I would just reference the training and the amount of education that these guys get and knowing how to work safely in those environments and how to take all the appropriate protections and use PPE and all those types of things. Low paying is the one I would say is the huge red flag.
Just straight up wrong.
Just straight up wrong. I think, even as an apprentice, you're making a very livable wage. You are also getting benefits. And then as you move through your apprenticeship, all that does is increase. And I think, certainly with our contractors and with Rick's group, it's one of the few places where you can still qualify for a pension, right? I mean, and that's above and beyond. You can still do a 401k. You can still do a lot of these things that people don't necessarily think about when they're 18, 19, 20. But by the time they've spent a career in the trades and they now qualify for a full-blown pension, that's unheard of. I mean, those things have gone the way of the dodo, right? And so when you start talking to people and recruiting people into our industry, and start talking about things like we offer an actual pension that you will pay into and that will pay you for the rest of your time. I mean, who does that? So I mean, the aspect of low paying, I think to me is just absolutely a myth. 100%.
Well, I'll tell you, I've done an entire career in public affairs and public outreach. I have spent a lot of time getting dirty in dangerous situations and also had low paying gigs.
You bet.
So that is true for the soft nerf existence of me, even more so than I would say for some of the skilled trades. Here's one. It's just men's work.
It's just what?
Men's work.
Oh, men's work? Oh, no, actually, we have a group. They get together every year and they do a lot of communication. It's Trade Women's Build Nations, right? Conference. They do one every year, but we push really hard to get more females in the trade. It's tough because I'll tell you, when I started 36 years ago, right?
Yeah.
We had like one in my whole local, one woman.
It was just men's work at the time.
Yeah,
like,
it sort of was, and we've really been doing a lot of outreach trying to attract more women into the trade. It's not like caveman mechanical where, you got to throw a 200-pound piece of pipe on your shoulder and climb a 20-foot ladder. That's not like that. Right. And so, and actually, even in my home local 58 out of Colorado Springs, when I was a manager down there, I had we had a few women in our local, and I always made a couple of them stewards on every job they'd go on. Because something people don't think about is women get angry just like men. The difference is women can think when they're angry and men can't. And that's a fact. And so they made great stewards because guys get all upset and angry, and that woman could sit there still thinking and be just as mad. And that's why you never win an argument at home. That's why they're great as stewards.
Just thinking that's why I've never won an argument with
100%. I promise you.
You and I are both married to very strong women. So
I just want to tack on something to that, which I totally agree with everything Rick just said. But I'm also proud to say that, and I think we're going to feature it in an upcoming episode of this podcast. But RMMCA is currently in the process of standing up our own chapter of what we call WIMI, which is Women in the Mechanical Industry. That is an initiative and a program from MCAA nationally that they've been pushing out, which is basically just a way of supporting, recruiting, and providing resources for women who are in our industry. And we don't limit that to whether they're in the trade craft or whether they're in management or whether they're somewhere in between. It's an entire cross section. So we've got a lot of women who work in the offices. We've got women on dispatch teams. We've got women who are vice presidents, presidents, managers, project managers, all the way down the line. Maybe they're doing the estimating or maybe they're doing scheduling. And then of course the folks like in Rick's area. So we're really trying to pull that whole group together, and they have an annual conference as well and everything else. But they're having their first event here in November, which we're super excited about. And we've set up a budget for that and everything. So we're just excited to be promoting that program here locally at RMMCA, something that we're really trying to accomplish and shine a light on at a national level.
Perhaps a future episode.
I think it's absolutely
a future episode. I think that should probably happen.
Yep.
Rick, peer into your crystal ball for me a little bit.
Sure.
As we look ahead, what issues are top of mind for you in the short, medium, and long term?
Manpower, the ability to get manpower, training. Those things are important. Like I just said a little bit ago, right now, currently, it looks like there's 10 years worth of work coming in some areas that have more work than they've ever had.
Wow.
I mean, by a long shot, more work than they've ever had. And it has me concerned. We're beefing up our apprenticeship programs, stacking them with as many people as we can get in there. We're organizing, doing a lot of organizing, trying to attract people over to us. But the manpower demands are so high that it's concerning. Right? You have to be worried about it, because if you're not, you're going to fail. And we just want to make sure we don't fail, that we staff all the work that we have coming with qualified people and make sure we have the training and everything in place to handle it all.
Wow.
So a lot of strategic planning.
Randy, here's a question for you. As you came into this role, what has been the most surprising thing to you about working with labor unions?
Well, I think we talked about it in the first time we sat down and did an episode, right?
Right.
I think the actual relationship between that I had already formed at that point with my business managers was easily the nicest surprise coming into this role, because to be honest, my previous roles, I had not ever dealt with labor per se or unions and any locals or anything like that. But the contractor I had been at was not signatory, and that was a heavy civil contractor. The association I came from was not an association that dealt a lot with signatory contractors. And so the idea of playing that role for those contractors wasn't part of the service offering for that association. So that whole aspect of this role was really a black box. But so I am certain, and I will gladly admit and raise my hand that I'm sure I carried my own bias and myths that I had heard or learned or thought I knew about unions coming into this role that were dispelled almost immediately. Right. And part of it is that not all unions are the same. And,
sure.
And I wish that was something we could highlight a little bit too, because I'll be honest, like the unions that the union that I work with, and there's some sort of adjacent unions, I think, as well. The sheet metal guys are great, and the sprinkler fitters are great. And and the electricians and things like that. So we've got some sort of ancillary adjacent unions that we kind of deal with in the MEP space, the mechanical space. But the unions I get to deal with are all salt of the earth, awesome folks that just want to show up, do their job, do it really well, be paid fairly for their work, and continue to educate themselves and advance. I don't know how you don't get behind something like that. That is so easy for me to support and advocate for. It almost is, it tells its own story.
Sounds all American to me.
Sounds all American. Now, I'll be the first to point out, and Rick's probably in a little tougher spot to agree with me on this, but not all the unions are that way. I mean, they're just not, right? And there's a certain amount of brotherhood and sisterhood that exists between, unions supporting other unions and things like that. And that's why I don't want to put Rick on the spot with that, but I think that's the breakdown that we deal with when we go to places like the state capitol, and the unions get painted with a very broad brush as being all the same. And so whether that's a good thing or whether that's a bad thing, it ends up being the same thing. And that's just not true. And so that's one of my goals has been to really kind of differentiate that and kind of train and educate some of our legislators about the differences in the unions, because the stuff that these guys do down at their training centers, people would get on board with that and be on board with that all day long. That'd be the easiest sell ever. But people don't make that differentiation. And I think unfairly, the guys that I get to work with get lumped in with some of the other stuff, and some of the other, you mentioned bad actors earlier. There are some of those, and
it's unavoidable.
We get lumped in with that. And so I think there's an aspect of that, but by far, getting to know and getting to work with the guys at my UA locals has been the biggest highlight of coming into this role, hands down.
Well, I think that's true of any industry. Like law firms are different from one another. Private companies, you can, and I don't want to name any names, but you can point to companies that do the same thing in the same industries.
Right.
And they have much different reputations because they treat their employees differently. They function differently. There's any number of differences that you can draw between similar types of organizations. That's got to be true of unions too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're all a little different, right? I mean, we take a lot of pride in what we do training wise, and making sure that our members are prepared to be as successful as they possibly can be. And I'm sure that all the unions I've dealt with the AFL-CIO and stuff like that, they're looking out for their membership. I just think that we bring a little something different, in the sense that we do what we can to be a value add, not a value deduct. Sure. Right? We cost more, but we also train. We make sure our guys are safe in getting the job done. And so to me, that's where we're different. And I'm really proud to be part of the UA. I really am.
All right, Rick, last question for you. Two, actually. One, take a look in that camera. For anyone who is considering a job in the union, in this sort of milieu, what is your pitch to them? Why should they consider this line of work?
Well, I'll tell you, if you know anything about construction unions, you're going to hear, oh yeah, you can join the union and sit on a bench, right? You're going to be unemployed. Been in this trade 36 years. I've been out of work for 3 months in 36 years. And that's because I didn't answer the phone. And that's a fact. If you put your mind to it, if you get into our apprenticeship program and you work hard in your career, you're going to be successful. You're going to have a great life. And when it comes time to retire, you're going to be able to retire with dignity. You're going to have health insurance for you and your family. You're going to have the things that really the middle class deserves to have to go through life in the United States.
What a delightful pitch. Last question now. This is the one we ask everyone.
Uh-oh.
Rick, what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
Honestly, I wanted to fly helicopters.
Cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Helicopter pilot we've not had yet.
I don't think we have. Yeah.
No, that's pretty good. We can almost field an entire baseball team with people
really?
Who professional baseball.
I didn't want to play baseball. I guess I probably didn't want to play football, but I'm not 6'7".
No, none of us are. Randy, any concluding comments?
No, I just, I'm grateful to Rick for being on the show. I think the more that we can do from a podcasting perspective, whether that's video or audio or whatever, I think the more we can do to kind of educate folks, kind of talk about these things that are important. I mean, we got to it a little bit here with what are really the myths that are kind of commonplace with the industry, and what are some of the truths. I mean, the compensation, the lifestyle, the ability to really support not only yourself but a family, the retirement benefits, things like that. Those are not talked about enough, in my opinion, right? I mean, these are things that exist, and these are things that kind of get lost in the sauce when you're talking about, taking a job offer. Oh, what else do you offer? And it's all those other benefits usually just sort of get tossed in at the end. And it's not the sexy stuff that people lead with, but
important stuff though.
It is important stuff, especially when you have all this other kind of myth, untrue sort of, I don't know what you would call it, but the things that you have to get through and break down and get beyond in order to even make that argument or make that pitch, right? I don't think Hollywood does our industry any favors. You kind of referenced that earlier, and some of the ways that our industry folks get represented in commercials and movies and places like The Simpsons. It's just unfair to our industry, right? And so we have to get beyond that to really get to the good stuff and talk about the work that we actually do, talk about the technology and the equipment that we actually get to use and those advancements and what that looks like. Talk about things like it is for women and it is not just men's work anymore, like really expanding the horizons on who can be a part of this industry, right? It's anybody. But to get to that part of the conversation, we really have to get over some stuff. And so I just wish we were spending more time talking about the things that make this industry great and the things that are true about our industry, and not spending so much time sort of defending the falsehoods and the narratives that are out there because they're convenient for a TV show, or they make a good punchline in a movie, but yeah, so I'm just grateful for my labor partners and who I get to work with on a day in and day out basis. And I'm grateful for Rick because he kind of holds it all together.
Well, I'm grateful I get the opportunity to do this show and help tell that story. Yeah. This is Randy Drennen. This is Rick Allen. Thank you very much, Rick.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And thank you all for joining us. This is available on podcatchers everywhere. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. My name is John Ekstrom. I am the host of Tradeswork, and we will see you next time, where we will highlight the women and men building our communities, building our skyline, and building our future. We'll see you next time.